coming to you here with another edition of Cows and Quacks. Joined always is my co-host, Mr. Tim Alcorn. Tim, show him some love.
Man, I live just out here on the East Coast, just still repping my horns, even though we're foreign. So, big news is Oregon's still right in the hunt.
Right in the thick of it. And, you know, it's this last stretch of the season, these next 3-4 games, including the Pac-12 championship, are as difficult of a test as possible. You know, we have the highest strength of schedule amongst anyone in the top 10 in the college football playoffs. And I got to give it to my Ducks, man. Last week was a tough game, but they freaking broke Washington. I mean, broke them. Like, they fired their offensive coordinator. Jimmy Lake got suspended. Now he's looking at getting fired himself. They dismantled Washington, not just on the field, but when you start talking that much trash and then you show up like that, you're going to have consequences.
And, you know, and that's what I was talking to you during the game is texting, and I was, hey, man, this is some seriously bad weather.
Oh, it was some of the worst weather I've ever seen.
When the weather eased up, that tore them up in a second.
Well, the thing about it, man, I mean, it was raining almost nonstop for most of the game. It was 45 degrees. He had 30-mile-an-hour winds. I mean, that's as gross of weather. I mean, you've lived in Seattle. I lived in the Northwest. I mean, we know what that feels like. That's just cold, and it's a different type of cold. It's not like snow cold. It's a whole different type of cold, and everything is wet. You can't get a grip on anything, and you can't dry off. It's constant. It's like being in a shower.
Yeah.
But the shower's cold the whole time. But you know I gotta say something. I owe Travis Dye so much more respect than I've been giving him. This guy is playing some of the best football of his life, and he's going to
get a lot of respect when he cashes that check on Sunday.
Boy, I tell you what, I had a lot of doubts about him over the years, but this guy is balling out of his mind. And if it's not for him, I don't think we win half our games. I really don't. I mean, he's been on fire. On fire. Speaking of being on fire, we both went 4-1 last week. You lead our little contest here, 55-18. I'm back 55-23 on picks this year. You know, I want to talk about Texas for a little bit because this is what probably one of the most frustrating teams for me in college football right now. Not because we featured them on the show, but really along the long lines where they are extremely stacked and talented. And we've seen aspects of that. And I just don't know how much tolerance Texas is going to have for Sarkisian.
Well, we're obviously, you know, I mean, the players he's got now are not his. And, you know, he may want something different lining up than what it's lining up now. You know, neither quarterback is his quarterback. I think he wants to get his quarterback in because, you know, every coach wants their own quarterback, and I understand it. And, we put our little freshman back in, and he looked like he had deer in headlights again. So I don't know. At least we've been competing and leading in games. That wasn't the case with Iowa State. They just beat the shit out of us.
I didn't get a chance to see the game.
You didn't miss anything.
Wow, it sounds like it, man. I feel for you. I really do. You know, I that's kind of a good segue into what we need to talk about this week. What needs to change at Texas? Is it a buy-in? Is it an attitude? What in your mind, being a Texas faithful, what needs to change?
Well, I think maybe just players in position, maybe a better offensive line, maybe a better defensive line. We got the running back. maybe another wide receiver. We really need to work on making Xavier Worthy a big part of the game. I don't believe it's about buying in because we've been in games. I don't know. We'll see. Like you said, you always call him 7-win Sark. I hope it's better than that. Because I was hound Sark. In hindsight, I'm not sure we shouldn't have rowed the boat.
Yeah, no, we'll see what happens. I mean, there's a lot of shifting and changing that's about to happen this year in college football, and a lot of that.
Where does Fleck end up? Does he end up in Florida?
He's going to get someplace good, I think. He might end up at USC. He might end up at LSU. You just don't know.
Yeah, he's gonna be probably the first choice for everybody.
I would think so. I mean, Minnesota hasn't gone as planned, but it's also Minnesota. It's really hard.
They've been competing for the Big Ten and ranked third at one time or whatever. Minnesota will have the talent. Penn State and Wisconsin and Ohio State and Michigan even have. So you're going 7-3, 8-4, whatever it is, 7-4, 8, whatever it is. That's a good job in the Big Ten for Minnesota.
Yeah, no, I mean it gets Minnesota to the point that they're in the conversation. You can't overlook them when you're playing them, and I think that's probably the ceiling for Minnesota. Nothing against the program, but it's just it's one of those programs where they're not going to get to that point. Just because it purely
and Fleck like I told you was talking about it's easy to get a good coach. It's very, very hard to get a great coach, and Fleck may be that great coach.
I think if he gets a shot at a bigger program, you're going to see what he can do. He's kind of done that step up where he went, from Western Michigan, and now he's at Minnesota. I could see him ending up at Florida, USC, LSU, a big name program.
Penn State, if Franklin moves,
I think Franklin's gone. I don't know if he's
going to USC.
I think Penn State might be more of a geographical benefit for him just because he knows the Midwest pretty well with recruiting.
Right.
That might be more of a logical step for him. But as far as going to USC, they're going to need a full-on revamp at USC. It's not like when Pete Carroll left. They're going to need a full revamp, and USC is they're just almost as bad as Washington right now. Things are bad, and I just happen to sit back and smile because all this is a result of my Ducks kicking the living shit out of them for the last few years.
So I must switch gears for a second. Before we talk about the top five, which I think they got it right in the college football, I probably would have Cincinnati ahead of Ohio State, but that'll take care of itself. But the college football, the committee said we ranked Michigan ahead of Michigan State because they were the better team. No, they wasn't. Michigan State kicked their ass.
It would be really great if we could settle this on the field, Tim.
Yeah, it's like, but – and here's what scares me. Are they setting this up to leapfrog you?
Yep.
With Ohio State?
Yeah, I saw that. This is one of those situations where I think Oregon, I honestly, like where we're at and how consistent the voting's been the last 2 weeks with the playoffs.
Yeah.
We just got to win our games, man. And we'll get in whether it's fourth or third. But this year in particular, that degree is a big, big deal. And you're talking about coming in, if you're fourth and you're playing a number one Georgia straight out of the gate, I mean, there's something to be said for being able to prepare for two teams, right? And that's what the coaches are going to do. They're going to look at the different variables and, okay, we're either going to play this team or that team. If Oregon gets in right now and we're to play an Alabama, I think we beat Alabama.
Yeah, you do not. I think that you want to be second or third. I think that you want to try to have a big win the first week before you play Georgia.
Yeah, you don't want to come in and play Georgia square and away. That's just not. That's not a team. I mean, this team's ridiculous, Tim.
Georgia's gave up 6.5. So if they score a touchdown, they win the game. They give up 6.5 points a game. This is otherworldly. It's at this point, and of course they have 4 more games to go. It's the best defense I've ever seen play college football, and I've seen a lot of good defenses.
You've been around longer than I have. I've seen a lot of good defenses in my day too. I can't ever place this anywhere close to it. I mean, but they've also benefited, all right? And I'm going to keep this in perspective. They have benefited from playing a very soft home schedule. It's helped them do that. Now, when they play Alabama here in a couple weeks, which isn't a guarantee it's even going to be Alabama. Alabama's still got some mess to get through. But I'm looking at their schedule. I mean, come on. They got Tennessee. They're going to roll up Tennessee. They got some no-name Division III school that they're playing, Charleston Southern Buccaneers. Okay? And then they finish off the year with their annual game at Georgia Tech. And then after that, they got the SEC Championship. And I mean, the SEC West is absolute toss-up. I mean, Auburn is going to really throw a wrench in this if they beat Alabama. I mean, really, because Alabama's sitting at 5-1, and Texas Tech beat Alabama head-to-head. If Auburn beats Alabama, A&M.
It's going to be Texas A&M. I tell you what, Alabama may get through. A&M's. I believe that at this point in time, A&M is the best team in the West.
I mean, their only loss, Tim. I mean, they've had 2 losses, right? Right. Yeah. Let me go back. Let me look at these guys. This has been an interesting year. They lost back-to-back games, Arkansas and Mississippi State, and everyone kind of rode them off. Me included.
And if they played those 2 games now, they'd beat the shit out of them.
And I wrote them off, me included.
Yeah.
And then they came in and then they beat Alabama. And then they've had a lot of close contests except for South Carolina. The confusing thing about that team though is they only beat Colorado 10-7.
Yeah.
So
first game of the year.
It was the second game, man. Second game of the year.
Was the second game, and I believe they had 1 or 2 touchdowns called back. So
it's been a strange year. I digress. No matter what happens with Ohio State and Michigan, okay, and I really believe, first of all, if Michigan beats Ohio State, wouldn't Michigan State still win? And Michigan State wins out. Wouldn't that put Michigan State in the Big Ten championship? Because they're all in the same division. So, I mean, so I'm looking at Michigan State's schedule, and I mean, they have Maryland, Ohio State, and Penn State. So this is all going to get settled really quickly.
They ain't winning out.
No, they're not winning out. I'm not so sure Ohio State wins out either. Man, this is such a crazy year. Really,
what is Penn State's record?
Penn State. Let's look. Penn State's 5-3. They're out of they're out of the mix.
Right, okay.
They had 3 losses in a row: Iowa, Illinois, and Ohio State. So I mean, and then they play Michigan this week, which is on our list to talk about here. But my point is, the Big Ten's going to figure itself out. Oregon just has to win their games, and that's no easy task. We have a tough game this week against a team that's had our number, and then we go to Salt Lake next week, which is going to be a very tough, cold freaking game in Salt Lake City against the Utes. Come back and play.
Utah's on fire. Utah's on fire right now.
They are on fire, and then we have to come back and play the Civil War, which is always a tight game, and then you got the Pac-12 championship against Utah.
Yeah.
So you got to play the same team twice in 3 weeks.
So can anybody win out? Okay, is it Utah's hands down?
Yeah, Utah's pretty much hemmed up the South at this point. I don't think there are any other teams. I'm going to pull that up while we're talking. I don't think there's any other teams that have a shot at this point to get into it. I mean, they have Arizona this week. They're going to win. The biggest game is against Oregon, and they play against Colorado to wrap up their season. They should win that. But beyond that, right now they're 5-1 in conference, and I believe they hold the tiebreaker against ASU, which is the only one close to them. So Utah just has to win one more game, and I'm pretty sure it's a done deal for them.
Okay.
And they're gonna beat the brakes off of Arizona this weekend. So it's a tough road for Oregon. It's a very tough road for Oregon, and you have to go on the road and do that, and then also do it again in another 2 weeks, right after that. Like that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. So I'm gonna let you bring in our first game here. Let's talk about your Horns.
Okay.
So
well, you got
positive.
Kansas, which we better manhandle them coming into Austin to play Texas. They're 29.5-point favorites. I do not believe that Texas covers just because that's who Texas is right now. But I got a 42-18 Texas victory.
Texas had better freaking cover, dude. Kansas is bad. I mean, like really bad. And I get being pessimistic right now because it's trending a certain way, and a lot of this stuff has to do with momentum and consistency, and we see it year after year. I think Texas does cover. I have them winning, but man, Sark had better not let this game be closer. He's gonna have some issues in Austin, man. Getting out of the stadium alive if this thing's close or comes down to it. So it's gonna be pretty tough. Wazoo coming in, and they're playing pretty decent football right now. They're second in the North. If they were to win this game, they would control their own destiny in the North. And it's weird given that their coach isn't there anymore and that they've had all the setbacks they've had, but Washington State is just been a gritty team, and they're one of those teams that have just caught fire as of late. What do you see in this game, Tim? Have you seen much of Washington State this year?
No, I hadn't. Although they've been playing pretty good, even though they're the one that fired the coach, right?
Yes.
Okay. I believe you're going to control it on the ground. Brown's going to pass it when he has to. I think your defense is going to control it. I actually have Oregon winning this game 41-14.
Wow. I have it a lot closer than that. I think this game goes, like you said, as we're able to control it on the ground. Anthony Brown's got to start really getting his act together, and he pulled it together, and he's been able to course correct in the last couple games. But you cannot throw interceptions against a team that can put up these kind of numbers. I mean, this is a really, really good offense. If Oregon does shut them down, I think this could be a blowout, but I just don't see it, just given the history in this game consistently. So I got Oregon winning this thing 31-24. I think it's going to be pretty tight. I want to see obviously as many points as they can possibly put up, but yeah, I don't see it happening. Next game we got here, number 6 Michigan playing at Penn State. The line's even in this one. I was a little surprised by the line being even going into this one, just because I would expect Michigan to be such a heavy favor, seeing as they're ranked ahead of Michigan State, who beat them head to head.
Yeah.
So if the shoe isn't fitting here, either they got to be really big or they're not. I don't know what to make of this game. I'm tempted to take Penn State. Where you at, man? Where'd you go?
I am going to take Penn State.
Oh, give me a score, please.
I have a 31-27 Penn State victory.
Oh, my gosh. You know what? I'm going to ride it. I'm going to take Penn State as well. I just have a sneaking suspicion on this game. Penn State's feeling the disrespect, and I think they get it done this week. I really do. It's weird, man. It's weird we both have the same look at this game, too. I lost you, Tim. Where are you? You there?
No, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me?
There you are. There you are. Bring us into our next game, brother.
Okay, next one, a big game. Purdue going in to Ohio State. Ohio State is a 20-point favorite.
Yeah, that's a huge game.
How do you?
I honestly think that Stroud's playing fantastic football. I think that there's a lot on the line for Ohio State. I think they're going to play a little bit tight. How Ohio State has ended up having the big games at their home field this year, I just don't know. It's been amazing to watch. But you know what? I saw Purdue come out on fire against Michigan State. They wanted to play in that game more than Michigan State did. And I think Purdue's going to take that momentum into the shoe, and this is going to be a fourth quarter match. I think Ohio State has enough in the tank to beat them, but I do not think this is going to be a 20-point game at all. In fact, I have Ohio State winning this thing, about 38-35. I think this is going to be a very, very close game.
I have a 38-29 victory. Ohio State scores late, put it away.
Yeah, so we're both seeing that same thing there. Ohio State's good, don't get me wrong. They're a very good team, but Purdue is playing some really good football right now, and they're a dangerous team to play right now. Bring us into our next game, brother.
Yes, they are. This is a big game, and I don't know who I'm taking. This is number 11, Texas A&M, going in to play number 15, Ole Miss. A&M is a 2.5-point favorite. I think oddsmakers got that wrong. I think that Ole Miss should be a 2.5-point favorite.
Yeah, this is a coin flip game. I'm going to take the Aggies in this one. They're starting to really trend. And, again, we talked about earlier that if they could go back and play the two games they lost, I think they might win those games. I'm taking A&M in this one by a field goal.
Yeah, I got that. I got A&M 27-24.
All right, you want to bring us into our game of the week?
Man, it's a big game. It's a big game in the Big 12. Number 8, Oklahoma, which I think they're kind of getting dissed a little bit, being undefeated. I think they're better than Michigan and Michigan State. I think they'd beat them both. At number 13, Baylor. Baylor's, I've been telling you all year, Baylor's a pretty good team.
They've been playing great football. Baylor has really gotten it together. They kind of came in off the radar for me and a lot of other people that don't follow the Big 12 as closely maybe as you. I'm going to go first and let you round it out, man. I'm actually taking Baylor in an upset here. I think, and this is the only reason why, I don't think there's any other team that I've seen other than Texas that has the firepower and athleticism to put a lot of pressure on Oklahoma to have to make plays. And not that Williams can't do it, because he certainly can. But the reason why Oklahoma's not getting the love from the committee is because of their schedule and the way some of these games have gone for them. And I know it sounds crazy because it's Oklahoma and they're undefeated and it's the Big 12, but there's a perception there that they're trying to overcome right now. I don't think this does them any favors. I think Baylor knocks them out of the playoff picture completely. Baylor's a good team, and that's why they get the victory, and I think this is a shootout. I got Baylor winning this one 41. We'll call it to 35.
I have Baylor winning it 35-34 with a 32-yard field goal to win it at the end.
If you get that right and you don't put money on it, Tim, I'm going to be so pissed off at you, man. So hold on. We picked major upsets to happen at the same time in the same week. I don't think that's ever happened, bro. I don't think we've ever done that before.
We hadn't, but we'll see. Hey,
Riverboat Gamblers over here.
I think that Baylor's going to beat them. I think better. I think at home Baylor's a better team. That crowd's going to be going nuts.
That's a great. I want to go see that new stadium. I've been to all the Waterway stadiums except for Baylor, and it's pretty cool. The Neyland Stadium's one of those in Tennessee. It's pretty cool. You can take a boat right up there. Husky Stadium, Washington, is actually a really cool setting. They like to call it the greatest setting in college football, but not when it's 45 degrees and raining, I guess.
Putting you on the spot. I believe we've got 4 games left, including the championships, right?
4 games left, including the championship week. Yep.
Who's up in your top 4?
Who's in my top 4?
Yeah.
Is that what you're okay?
Who makes?
I honestly believe that Georgia is just head and shoulders above everybody. I haven't seen anything.
Yeah.
There's no chinks in the armor. I haven't seen anything like that at all. So Georgia's my number one. I don't think they're going to
Georgia can only beat themselves. In my opinion, they can only beat themselves.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Nobody can beat them.
Nobody's going to beat them but themselves. I think Oregon wins out and ends up at number 2. I think that's where we end up. I think we do beat. I think we do beat. We beat Washington State. We beat Utah twice. We beat Oregon State. We end up at number 2. I think number 3, truthfully, I know this is going to sound crazy. I think it's Ohio State. I think Ohio State gets in. And then, honestly, this last piece is difficult. I'm going to say that Cincinnati gets it at number 4.
Me and you have exactly the top 4. I believe that Georgia will beat Alabama in the SEC championship in Alabama.
I lost you, man. What'd you say?
Oh, no, I believe that Alabama will get knocked out by Georgia. Cincinnati will be the 4th team. You got me?
Yeah. No, I got you, man.
And
I lost you again. I don't know.
I believe that's the top 4, and I believe Alabama does not get in this year.
No, they don't. And it's not necessarily a bad thing for Alabama in a lot of ways. That just means next year when they come back, they're going to be insanely hungry and probably beating everyone by 40 points. And that's usually typical of a Nick Saban team that doesn't perform at the level Nick Saban wants, which is winning championships every single year. So,
well, something happened when A&M beat Alabama. It took the assistants can't beat Nick Saban. I think that helped Kirby Smart.
Oh, it certainly did. It certainly did. And I think it's going to help a lot of other teams that play Alabama in the future as well. Now Jimbo has that under his belt. And I think it's something that people are going to start looking at. But, we're sitting here, Tim, there's 3 games left in the season. Alabama could run the table, get in the playoffs, beat everyone, and win a championship. Right? I mean,
Bryce Young doesn't make he makes some pretty bad decisions sometimes.
He does. It's all that NIL money going to his head, man.
Yeah. Well, hey, he only got $1 million.
Hey, it's 7-figure freshman college athlete. It's not a bad gig. He must be doing okay with his time there at Alabama.
Didn't cost Alabama a penny either.
No, those guys did it right. So next week we'll be back, guys. We will get the technical piece figured out with the connection here, and we'll make sure we get everything polished up for you. But until then,